really glad for a nice turnout for people coming to our meeting tonight, and also for an opportunity to hear someone that I definitely think that is worth hearing. But first, I want to reminder, Michael has said that we are recording this Zoom call, which we do every week, and the entire Zoom call will be posted to the private group, in a few days or less after the meeting. Keep in mind that our guest speaker will get a copy of the guest speaker segment, okay? So, and just the guest speaker segment. So, having said that, let me say a couple of other things. Last week when we had Kimberly Forsyth on, I got some feedback that people were interested in knowing a little more about what this whole process is. What's Kimberly doing? What's Ben doing? What are other members of the Transhumanist Party doing? So I come up with just a very short introduction that I label why transhumanism is important to radical life extension. Because call it radical life extension, call it physical immortality, call it super long life. That's what we're here for. So real quickly, I did a Oxford Dictionary definition of what transhumanism is. The belief or theory that the human race can evolve beyond its current physical and mental limitations, especially by the means of science and technology. So that's a pretty good dictionary definition. The U.S. Transhumanist Party says putting science, health, and technology at the forefront of politics is their main thing. And I've pointed out before that the U.S. Transhumanist Party has certain key and core values. And their first and foremost core value is the significant life extension achieved through the progress of science and technology. I think we're starting to see some commonality here. By the way, you already know a lot of people that identify as transhumanists. Bill Falloon, Bill Andrews, Charlie Cam, one of my favorite funny men, Liz Parrish. Everybody has met or heard Gennady, who is the party chairman, Jose Cordero, Denisa Renson. I was looking through the list, and Denisa Renson is the U.S. Transhumanist Party's foreign ambassador to Japan. I thought that was pretty cool. Aubrey de Grey, Zoltan. We all remember the coffin bus, don't we? Newton Lee has come and talked with us before. So those are people that you know. That's a definition of what transhumanism is. This whole process for the presidential primary is in line with the U.S. Transhumanist Party's goal of influencing public policy, not politics as you think of it from the big two political parties, but primarily as a focus and advocacy for public policy. The presidential primary is right in line with that purpose, to generate press, to generate discussion about things that are important, such as radical life extension, helping get radical life extension into mainstream awareness. So I'll put up a shameless plug because I once again will post to our group the place where you can go and register so that you can vote in the presidential primary for the U.S. Transhumanist Party. The winner of that will be the standard bearer during the U.S. presidential race, and will be using that as a vehicle to generate the kind of awareness, the kind of publicity that we want for radical life extension and to those means. So having said all that, I'm going to introduce our guest and give him 15 or 20 minutes to speak, and then we can have some questions like we did last time. And if people want to continue to ask questions, we'll see how much time we want to spend overall. But right now I'm introducing Yohanan Ben Zion, Ben for short. He is, as I said, one of the U.S. Transhumanist Party's presidential primary candidates. He's also the chair of the Arizona Transhumanist Party. He's also the national chairman for the U.S. Longevity Party. So take it away, Ben.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, guys. Thank you, David and Susan, for these kind words. And you know what, David, you're doing so much for longevity advocacy, not just here in this state. David is also ranking officer in the Arizona Transhumanist Party, the Arizona Longevity Party, and now the vice chair of the United States Longevity Party, as well as running his network, his computing business, really doing an incredible amount of work in this world. So thank you, sir. It's just been such a blessing to have both of you in my life. And I'm so pleased to meet all of you and see some new faces and get to talk to you a little bit. I want to tell you a little bit. We talked a little bit about the definition of a transhumanist a few moments ago. You might still be wondering to yourself, what is the Transhumanist Party? Perhaps you know what a techno-optimist is. You certainly do. You certainly all have a high level of familiarity with life extension. And we want to be able to advocate through local initiatives and also at the national level. This is the presidential primary that's going on. And the person who comes out on top of this will be presenting in different media on behalf of life extension, primarily. That's the number one pillar of the United States Transhumanist Party charter documents. It's the number one pillar of the Futurist New Deal. And even though the Futurist New Deal is primarily an e-governance reform ticket and also an economic reform ticket in certain key areas, these policy initiatives are all devised to set a stage for a world that can sustain radical life extension. We want to be there when a universal longevity escape velocity takes place. We want to be able to make sure that happens as soon as possible, because every moment that we're not doing that, we're losing people that are close to us. We're losing people out there in the larger world. We might not know all of their names and faces, but all of those people, I do believe overwhelmingly, they would have been de facto life extensionists. And we have a duty to try and bring them into this world in whatever way we can. Maybe we can't convince them that super longevity is for them, but if we allow for initiatives of the kind that are described in the Futurist New Deal, such as public health services and declaring that aging is a disease and treating it as such. If we begin to do this, you guys met my dear friend and running mate last week, Kimberly Forsyth, and we've been working together very closely on this Estonia initiative. In fact, she was the one who introduced me. I was lucky enough to interview a gentleman named Florian Marcus. He is an Estonia e-governance emissary, and he has some incredible things to say about e-services, about i-voting, blockchain voting, which is fully functional in that country. That's something that is part of the Futurist New Deal. But also, because they've done this good work of having a public health service and also having high level of digitalization integrated into their governance and civil society, now they are on the cusp of being able to have a public health service that provides this key service that treats aging as a disease and begins to have extensive preventative measures, personalized medicine, constant oversight of citizens' health and genome. We can do this, and Estonia is a small country, and I've said this to David. By maybe first having a smaller country embrace this idea that aging is a disease and legislate accordingly, and also the people there having the political will to see this happen, that place can become a shining city on the hill. That is an example to the rest of the world. And we say, why do we not have all of these other countries embracing this idea of immortalism, of life extension? Why can we not have these other countries treating aging as if it were a disease? And that is something that we can do. It is something that we must do. and we must have the political will to do so. And if folks like yourselves, you already know this in your heart, you believe in longevity, and but it's up to all of us to come up with initiatives, to come up with plans, to work together, to speak out, sometimes to even be a vociferous voice on behalf of super longevity. That is what we can do, and that is what the United States Transhumanist Party is trying to do. It might surprise you in this room to know that there's a slim chance that Ben Zion or whoever is selected to be the United States Transhumanist Party candidate might not be assuming the presidency on January 1st, 2021, January 21st, 2021. But really, the point is that we are able to advance a national discussion on longevity and raise awareness for radical life extension, because too many people, they want to dismiss this idea as something almost a thing of science fiction, something that is a bridge too far, but it's not a bridge too far. You've heard from Aubrey de Grey. You've heard from men like Bill Falloon. You've heard people saying that cell death is going to be reversed. Ray Kurzweil, he says that as of 2020, he will have effectively reversed his aging, so that as of 2020, Ray Kurzweil will be getting younger rather than older. And that's something that we can do for everyone in the United States if we are able to convince them that they are worthy of this. And they are all worthy of this, and they should all have access to this. And this is the most important kind of work that we can do. Now, David asked me to speak a little bit more about the Futurist New Deal, so I'd like to say a few points. I mentioned that this is an e-governance ticket, and we want to have a blockchain-secured e-voting, or iVoting, which is the standard in Estonia. We've been looking over their shoulder and taking a lot of notes, copying their test results to try and see how we can implement this kind of system here in the United States. And it is, again, a question of a political will. And if we have that political will, we can begin to provide not only a more direct democracy to the citizens of the United States, but also a host of other e-services. Again, raising the bar with digitalization so that we can finally begin to have a public health service that is able to offer life extension to all citizens. And then those skeptics, those people who say, I don't know if I want that, I don't know if that's possible, when their doctor tells them that they're going to do it, you better believe they're going to do it. So that's the key difference there. I do believe that overwhelmingly people will become life extensionists as these services are provided to them. The other points of the Futurist New Deal. The Futurist New Deal is an economic reform ticket that provides a middle-class basic income to everyone from the ages of 18 to 63. Not an uncontroversial idea, one that was first proposed by the founder of our organization, who was already mentioned, Zoltan Istvan, in the form of a federal land dividend. And the Futurist New Deal is a continuation of that federal land dividend initiative. I'm sure everyone knows here that federal lands are held in great number, as they have been throughout the 20th century in the United States. They're not being put to particular use. Some of them, of course, about 15% of them are national parks, but the other 85% of them we can lease out to carbon neutral corporations and organizations, and those that maintain a very specific set of aesthetic guidelines. They have to return the land as they received it, but we can lease it out to a great many corporations and institutions. Now, why do we want to do that? Why do we want to create this alternative revenue stream, which would be totaling to $173 trillion over the course of 10 years? A very, very large amount of land can be leased out in parcels to a very, very large amount of companies. And the reason that we have to do that is because our middle class is struggling. We haven't always done our due diligence to see that wages are rising, commensurate with productivity, to see that everyone is doing well. And as a result, in the last decade, life expectancy has actually gone down in the United States. It's particularly for men. And this is not a good sign. There's maybe a few other, we could just point to many other factors there. But this is a trend that we must reverse. And desperate times do indeed call for desperate measures. These lands are something that we can monetize in this way without doing harm to the lands, without doing harm to anyone, in fact, without raising others' taxes. We would be lowering taxes for sole proprietorships and individuals. And we would also be contributing to those individuals a non-means tested $52,000 basic income for all citizens between the ages of 18 and 63. Retirees would continue to receive the benefits that they receive and also would be capped at that amount depending on the situation. There's a lot of complex details that we could get into at a later time. But this is something that we want to do so that we can, again, be setting the stage for a country that can sustain universal longevity escape velocity. If people aren't living well, if they're not able to pursue simple things, taking care of their families, starting small businesses, making the app that they always wanted to make, starting any number of kinds of initiatives. There is all manner of pro-social activities that people engaged in, do engage in that are not monetized. Andrew Yang, another presidential candidate who is a basic income advocate, talks about this a lot as well. And if we can do these things, we can again be setting the stage for a civilization in addition to the higher degree of digitalization and also giving control of our government back to the people. It is unfortunate that today moneyed special interests control many factors in governance. And outside watchdog agencies, they look at the United States and they say, you don't quite have a functioning democracy there. We need to start fixing all of those things. And e-governance and some of the other reforms, more specific reforms mentioned in the Futurist New Deal, are intended to do that. So it may not seem at first glance like this is a longevity platform, but it is in fact a longevity platform. We have to do the hard work to start raising the bar so that we are able to then begin to have life extension initiatives on the national level. And we also have localized life extension initiatives that we have worked on. We at the Arizona Transhumanist Party have worked on a number of different projects of these kinds, including a health services account initiative, allowing people to begin to use these public funds until such time as we have a full public health service to use these public funds towards life extension. You know, I was talking to my friend in Israel, Ilya Stambler. I was talking to my friend Ira Pastor in an interview, and we were talking about how in the United States there's so many trillions of dollars that are spent on end-of-life care. And we can, if we can shift those monies to prevention, if we can shift those monies to personalized medicine and constant oversight of your health in real time, we can get a lot more bang for your buck. As Benjamin Franklin famously said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And we can be making a lot better use of the resources that we have for public health by declaring that aging is a disease and by acting accordingly. It is the best way to proceed but it's not a solution. There's a lot of good work that needs to be done besides. And this is what we've been trying to do in talking about the Futurist New Deal and in advocating for these needed reforms, and do it in such a way that's not going to disrupt the existing system. I might not like it that moneyed special interests have made it such that they have a very low marginal tax rate for corporations and wealthy individuals relative to other affluent countries. Some would say to the detriment of the middle class. I might not like it, but that is the power structure. We have to find ways to fix these problems without creating great disruption. And the Futurist New Deal is such an initiative. There's a very real sense in crafting the Futurist New Deal with my friends at the Arizona Transhumanist Party and others, where I said, looking at this corporate tax rate that caps at 20%, I said, that's my first instinct was that's a little bit low compared to other developed nations. But the main point is that we do right by the middle class, allow them to be working, and we have to find solutions therein within the existing system. And so we cannot afford a long, protracted fight with men like Charles Koch and his ilk. We need to try to find ways to get these things in there. So there's a very real sense in which I'm running a little bit to the right of myself politically in advancing the Futurist New Deal. And that is also because the U.S. Transhumanist Party is quite a politically diverse organization. There's a lot of different political philosophies, and we want to be able to work with those people, even people who might be on a different part of the political compass than myself. But because we all do want the same thing, and that is a truly space-age civilization, a truly futurist a set of initiatives, and of course, first and foremost, that means longevity, escape velocity. And it's very good to hear, I think, that Ray Kurzweil thinks that he's going to have reached longevity, escape velocity next year. But we must be clamoring for a universal longevity, escape velocity, one that is for all of you, one that is for all of us. And we can do that. We just have to have the savvy and political will and be willing to grit our teeth a little bit and say some of these problems are policy problems. We need to find policy solutions. Some of these problems are cultural illiteracy problems. We need to be talking to people as much as we can to raise that technological literacy and that medical literacy in ways that people will find palatable. Now, my mother, she's been a type 1 diabetic for her entire life. She discovered this when she was a teenager. So it's been 40 plus years that she's struggling with this debilitating condition. And she's taken very good care of herself. She's a trim woman, but it's been very, very hard work. And now over the years, she's had increasingly newer iterations of these insulin pumps, almost to the point of being something like a mechanical pancreas, some of these prototypes. And I mentioned this when I interviewed Liz Parrish, and she says, we can fix that, in a word. She says, we will find a way to do this. So we can be talking to people about things that are meaningful to them in terms of treatments. Maybe not always going to the most far future notions, but talking about existing prototypes, talking about existing interventions, talking about what reversing cell death and related undertakings would mean to them so that they can be staying healthy for a very, very long time. We know that forever is a little bit of a hazy concept, but a very, very long time is good enough for me. Yes, I thank you again for having me. I don't know how I'm doing on time. I would like to also mention that this $173 trillion over 10 years that would be derived from this federal land dividend, it would be enough to make dramatic improvements besides not only implementing a basic income. There would be additional trillions to be spent on building out the National Public Health Service with this specific mandate that aging is a disease that we can cure. We know how to do it every day with every passing month, and we are finding new ways that we are able to do this. So we have to be able to convince people that this is a worthy undertaking. We have to bring in more researchers to be doing this on a bigger scale. And my friend, who is also a campaign advisor, Dr. Dan Elton, National Institutes of Health data scientist, we were having this very conversation. I said to him, David was there, I said, what should we be doing with the National Institutes of Health How can we be making this into a life extension organization? And he said, there's a lot of things that we can be doing. He mentioned some specific funding. He mentioned bringing in some specific people to be working in this way. And at present, that's not the mandate. There have been some cuts to organizations like this. And we want to make sure that we are not moving in the wrong direction, that we are moving our society, our civil society, our policy organizations and institutions in the appropriate direction to be ending the scourge of death. We are life extensionists. That is what we want. And Ray Kurzweil. I remember that moment when Ray Kurzweil assumed what is effectively the chief technical officer, the CTO of Google. Google doesn't have that job officially, but that's his job. And I said, wow, this is a life extensionist who now is at the helm of an incredibly influential organization, Google Labs. It's on par with DARPA, with the kinds of experimentation and development in futurism that they are doing. And I said, wow, life extension is going to be a reality. And now here we are. We have people like George Church just a few months ago giving us a list of these specific genomic enhancements that will allow us to be living effectively as long as we might want in just a few years. And he even mentioned some things that would effectively be upgrades as well. Exciting prospects for those who are interested in. And this is what transhumanism is about. I would urge you also, as David said, go to transhumanist-party.org/membership. Again, transhumanist-party.org/membership. Please sign up. And we have ranked choice voting, so you don't only have to vote for Ben Zion, but if you want to only vote for Ben Zion, number one, I wouldn't fault you for it. And but all of these, most of these guys on this ticket, they are good friends, and most of them, a great many of them, are life extension advocates and wanting to do good things in this world. It's not an easy thing to come up with a policy platform of this kind. So some of them are maybe doing some other kind of shtick. There's one, well, we don't even want to go there. But so I would urge you to please check us out. And you can also get involved with the United States Longevity Party, of which I am also chair. We also are doing some wonderful things there. We're very devoted to, that is our, the Transhumanist Party has specific mandates, and life extension is number one. The Longevity Party has set basically one mandate, which is the idea that aging is a disease that can be cured, and that we can advocate for this through policy channels. So thank you for listening to me. I'm looking forward to hearing some of your questions and getting to know you all a little bit.
Ben, thank you so much. That was a lot of information, and I asked you to give us a lot of information, and I appreciate that. Last week, Kimberly talked a little bit on blockchain and explained a little bit of that. So there may be some fundamental questions coming around.
Okay.
So right now, I'd like to open it up for anyone that would like, and just go ahead and ask your question. I can't see everybody all at once, so if you raise your hand and you're off the screen, I might miss you. So if you have a question, unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question.
I have a question. This is Diana.
Hi, Diane.
Hi. Thank you so much for presenting tonight. I am totally impressed and touched with the humane platform that you have, and of course, longevity, radical life extension platform. Thank you so much. You touch my heart and give me hope. So the question I have two questions. One's a little more specific. So last time, the way I voted was for the candidate of my party that I thought could win. And this time, I'm thinking about doing the same thing. The thing that I want more than anything is Trump voted out of office.
Mm-hmm.
So when I listen to you, my heart is with you, and I love what you said about creating a platform for discussion and education and inspiration. That makes so much sense to me. So where do you go with the final vote for President of the United States? At this point, I want to vote for the candidate I think can win.
Yes, that's an excellent question. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Oh, yes.
I have a follow-up question.
Okay. Yes. So I would like to say that this voting in our primary election, which is coming up in a few days, our voting registration cycle will end, I believe, on midnight of the 21st of September, a little earlier than these other parties' primaries, and we'll go for 1 week from the 22nd until the 28th. So registering with the Transhumanist Party will not affect your national registration in any way. So it won't preclude you from voting for a Democrat in their primary or in the general election. But it's a small thing that we can be doing to help support our fellow life extensionists in this political policy club. And yes, I understand the concerns. There have been any number of programs that have been attacked by this President Trump. Programs, some of these were life-saving programs, helping people. This is a gentleman who ran as someone who was going to be a populist of a kind, who described himself as a reformer, who was going to be helping people. And in most every respect, he's done quite the opposite. He's proved to be someone who is only on the side of the very rich and large corporations, and in many ways to the detriment of the rest of us. So I understand that frustration. I understand that strategy. I will also say that it's a small point, but our ranked choice voting system is designed to remove this idea of having to vote against a candidate, but rather you can vote for the candidate you want, and also you have an option of voting for many other candidates as well. So it's designed to remove that frustration from our process. But of course, the United States Transhumanist Party, we are a small organization. We want to grow that organization substantively between now and the following election cycle in 2024, the national election cycle. But we have a lot of work that we want to be doing. I hope I've answered your question, Diana. I'm curious to hear your follow-up question.
The follow-up is a more personal question, and thank you for that answer. That helps me a lot. So we just had a 5G cell phone tower put up in our backyard. It's been there for 2 days now. I think 5G, and there's people on the call that disagree with me, but I think 5G is very dangerous for our health and our longevity. I wonder where you stand on this issue, and I don't need to debate it. I just am interested if this is something you've considered as a political issue.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is an open question, and as you said, one that reasonable people might disagree on. It's been a question almost from the advent of the networked world, and certainly from the advent of a cellular technology as we presently use it, that there might be some health risks associated. So I imagine there's people here who might prefer to be hands-free and using other options when they're speaking rather than holding this phone up to their head at all times. But it is, with the current technology, it is a relatively low level. It's quite a bit less, for example, than having a heating blanket in your home. And it also diminishes the further you are from it quite exponentially. So some of those risks really depend on certain things like where you are located and other things. It almost makes you want to have turn your entire home or apartment into a Faraday cage and get some Wi-Fi routers instead of these other things. But it is very concerning. It's why in the Futurist New Deal, we talk about other technologies. One of the features of the Futurist New Deal is that data and Wi-Fi for all is a public good and effectively a human right. And there's many things that derive from that effect here in the United States and on the global scale. And in talking about this and planning for this, a lot of the writing that we did was about organizations like Google, Amazon, and the Tesla organization, pardon me, which are now putting a lot of mini satellites up in the air to be beaming this data to all the world at a lower cost. And we want to make sure that that's done in a healthful way, just as we want to see these 5G towers not emitting a huge amount of radiation. But I would say that it is a concern, but if you talk to some scientists, they will tend to assure you that this drops off precipitously, your exposure based on your distance from it. So we are hoping that this rollout will prove to be a healthful one. But we always must be mindful of these things, and we must be considering in all things, if some policy or business undertaking proves to be dangerous, we have to consider changing our opinions on it and legislating against it. So we have to remain open to that prospect.
Thank you.
Great questions, Diana. Who's next?
I spoke to a gentleman today, also in this race, John Carricks, who is an incredible businessman, a green businessman, doing wonderful work. And that was another of the Futurist New Deal podcasts that we've done. He's also running for president on this. He's my competitor, but we are friends. So he was kind enough to join me on the podcast. And, that's a part of the Futurist New Deal also, is certain kinds of approaches to green technology and green regulation. We do want to ban crude oil exports and fossil fuel subsidies, and we do want to be subsidizing green energy. And there's a whole host of technologies. I was talking to a great techno-futurist and Humanity Plus, H Plus organizer in the Netherlands, pardon me, just 3 nights ago, Amanda Stoll, and she was describing all of these breakthrough technologies and green technology that can be coming to market. We have so many great choices. We really are moving towards a great energy, as Jose Cordero says, an energy singularity that will reshape our civilization and be that much quicker in speeding up the pace of things that we want in this this organization, like longevity, escape velocity.
Yeah, that's tremendous. If there are no other questions, I'm going to let.
Make a comment.
Please.
Never mind. Susan tells me she has something to say.
Hi, Susan.
I just wanted to make a comment because you've been interviewing a lot of people from the Transhumanist Handbook. And
yes.
really, the list of people that David was going through, I mean, I honestly can't keep up with you. You've been doing so many interviews. It's almost like you're talking all day. You've interviewed Jose, you've interviewed Liz, you've interviewed a lot of people who we know and other people who we don't know. And for those of you who've got time to listen to some of Ben's podcasts, I mean, it's amazing how you talk to people, the information that you get from them. I mean, you're a very talented intellectual. You're really an all-rounder, and I'm in quite an awe of you because I've never known anybody like you before. And so I just really wish you the best, and I'm really thankful that you've come on to talk to us today.
Yes.
Thank
you for those kind words, Susan. And this has been an incredible learning experience. I said this to Ira Pastor. A lot of people, they have maybe a film star on their wall, Angelina Jolie. They maybe have a football star poster on their wall. I have pictures of Ira Pastor and Natasha Vitamore and Aubrey de Grey. Certainly like to see that on my wall. Yeah, this has been an incredible experience. I've thought of it almost as like a boot camp, because I have, it's no secret that I began organizing with some of these institutions at an earlier time, but in reality, I read a lot of this material. I wasn't talking to people like Jose Cordero. I wasn't talking to people like Natasha Vitamore. I was reading their work. And so now being able to do these podcasts, it's a dream come true. It's also been kind of a boot camp for other things that are required of someone in this position, this sort of media engagement. So I'm really, really so thankful for this opportunity and this growing experience. And I have a biotech startup, and I've done a lot of different kind of work, curriculum development, and I'm a career educator. But basically, prior to this time, I was community college professor, my primary bread and butter. So it's just been an honor to be able to meet these people who are doing this incredible work and to really expand my own horizons. And it's truly breathtaking to be in the presence of someone like Liz Parrish. It's truly breathtaking to be able to look at my phone and say, "Oh, Natasha Vitamore's calling. Let's talk about what's going on in the world of Humanity Plus." It almost brings a tear to my eye. So I'm really pleased that I've been able to have this opportunity.
Well, one more question, Ben.
Yes.
This is Diana again.
Yes, hello.
I'm curious, what would you say your best contribution is to becoming the presidential candidate of the Transhumanist Party?
Yes. There are some at a certain point, there were 3 candidates in this race. And now there are a few more. And some of those people, I don't believe they are life extension advocates at all. In the context, when you ask them, are you interested in life extension? They say yes. When you ask them, are you interested in X, Y, or Z initiative to improve life extension? They say, well, hold your horses. Some of these people are more conspiracy theorists, I believe, than genuine transhumanists who've entered this race. My primary competitor in the first part of this race, before more people entered the race, she even liked to downplay the role of life extension. So I want to say that my main contribution is this. Radical life extension is closer than you think, so get ready. The Futurist New Deal is a plan to help us get ready as a civilization. And even in the off chance that I do not assume the presidency on January 21st, 2021, we will still be doing that good work to move the ball. We want to move the ball as much as we can. Get people talking about these things, find interesting ways to pique their imagination, and get them involved and make them understand. Drag them kicking and screaming to this understanding that life extension is something for them, and it is the best outcome for all of us.
Yay!
I'd stand up and clap, but then you wouldn't get a chance to see me. Ben, that's tremendous. You clearly are the radical life extension candidate, and one of the reasons I wanted you to come and speak to this group. And my favorite funny man, Charlie Cam, has strongly endorsed you. So anybody good enough for Charlie is good enough for me. Yes.
He said this in no uncertain terms. Radfest guy, Joe Bardeen, he was nice enough to say some kind words in support of the Futurist New Deal. Jose Cordero had some kind words to say. We've gotten a lot of interesting endorsements. Just yesterday, I interviewed a man in Bangladesh. He's a Humanity Plus organizer in Bangladesh, and he's a Muslim moderate. He's proud of this fact. He's a moderate Muslim. He doesn't have a lot of overpowering religious beliefs, but he has a strong connection to his culture. It's a beautiful thing. But because he's a Muslim moderate and a life extension, this man, I can only describe him as Transhumanist X. If his name were to be revealed, he would be in tremendous danger, and he's in danger for being a Humanity Plus and life extension advocate. And I interviewed him yesterday for about an hour. We talked about his experiences in his town, Dhaka, how many secularist bloggers have been executed, summarily executed in this town for the crime of being a free thinker. And he says he wants you to know also that life extension is worth fighting for. And he also wanted you to know that because he saw the interview with Liz Parrish, because he saw the interview with Natasha Vitamour endorsing Ben Zion 2020, he says he's going to be supporting Ben Zion 2020 as well. So even this gentleman who is in some way at the extreme part of the world in many respects is supporting this campaign.
Okay, well, thank you, Ben. It's been great having you come and visit with us tonight. I am going to tell people how they can see the Futurist New Deal podcast.
Yes, thank you.
And I will be making a post to the Super Long Life group about tomorrow night's presidential primary debate, of which Ben will be on, debating with, there'll be a total of 4 candidates. So
yeah.
if you're interested, fine. But anyway,
please check it
I'll
out.
put all those plugs in there. Please check those out, and I'll remind everybody about the voting dates. Ben, feel free to drop off the call, and thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, guys. Okay. Yeah. I won't lurk.
Thank you for coming.
Even inadvertently. Thank you, guys.
Okay,
Pleasure.
bye now.
It's nice to meet you all. Diane, it's good to see you all. Thank you.